Hello and welcome to our Congressional Western Caucus Forum, celebrating the benefits of domestic mining in the gem state. Today, I'm joined by two of my most esteemed colleagues and Western Caucus members as well from the great state of Idaho. We have Representative Russ Fulcher and Representative Mike Simpson to discuss a very exciting development coming out of Idaho. The Congressional Western Caucus works to support safe, responsible energy development, and a huge part of that hinges on having a stable and reliable supply of the minerals that we need, including those critical minerals. One of those is cobalt. And as you'll hear today, by summer of 2022, just this year, the Salmon Chalice National Forest in Idaho will be home to the only fully functional underground cobalt mine in the United States. This project, which is known as Idaho Cobalt Operations, will be essential as we work toward a clean energy future, and having a domestic source of cobalt that supports local economies with regulations and protocols to protect both workers and the environment is something that we truly should be celebrating. We're fortunate to be joined by several guests who can help shed some light on how we got here and how this mine will benefit communities not only in Idaho, but across the United States. First, though, I want to introduce Congressman Russ Fulcher. He represents Idaho's 1st Congressional District, and Russ, I'd like to open it up to you to give a few opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Chairman Newhouse, and to all those that have joined us today. And you're absolutely right. This is a breath of fresh air and a long, long time coming. To me, it's made no sense whatsoever to depend on our enemies for critical minerals, especially when we have such blessings of those minerals in domestic areas. And one of those is right in my home state of Idaho. And so this has been a long time coming. And this, as we're going to hear throughout this testimony, this has got benefits worldwide. This has got homeland security advantages. Plus, this has positive ramifications on the economy. And as you know, mining today is not the mining of decades ago. The processes are much cleaner. The harvesting of this material is something that's sustainable and friendly to the environment. And so this is a positive thing. Unfortunately, it's all too rare that this happens, but we're fortunate and blessed to have this taking place in the United States, in my home state of Idaho. And so, Mr. Chairman, I yield back and thank you for the opportunity to open.
Thanks a lot, Russ, and thanks again for joining us today. Now we'll go to Mr. Mike Simpson, who is a long-serving, esteemed representative for Idaho's 2nd Congressional District. And I'd like to say, too, Mike is the ranking member of the House Appropriations Subcommittee for Energy and Water. And that's a panel that I have the privilege of serving on along with Mr. Simpson. Mike, would you like to give us a few opening remarks?
Sure, Dan, I appreciate it. And first, I want to thank the Western Caucus for hosting this forum to celebrate the benefits of domestic mining in Idaho. This is an important conversation. I think my colleagues and our panelists, I thank them for taking the time today to participate. Idaho was recently ranked the most mining-friendly jurisdiction in the world. That distinction brings with it exciting possibilities for our state and the nation. Just in way of a little background of history, the reason Idaho has a panhandle is because of mining. And in fact, when Idaho and Washington and Oregon and Montana were all part of the same territory, and Washington wanted to apply for statehood, the population center was actually in the panhandle of Idaho, in the mining district, where all the miners worked and everything in the Silver Valley and so forth. So they came over and they were afraid that that mining would, the number of population would move the capital over toward Idaho, and they didn't want that. So they cut off the northern panhandle of Idaho. And then when Montana became a state, they were going to go on the Continental Divide and create the other side. But apparently the government surveyor was drunk and got on the wrong mountains. And so the Continental Divide is actually over in Montana. But that's why Idaho has a panhandle. And mining, as I said, Idaho has a long history of mining. The Silver Valley in North Idaho has produced more silver than any other area in the world. And today, the cobalt deposits throughout Idaho are obviously very important. For Idahoans, responsible mining projects mean economic investment in local economies, including good-paying jobs. As a nation, we work to responsibly utilize Idaho's invaluable resources. We can loosen the grip on foreign nations currently have on the global critical mineral supply chain. The Biden administration has identified critical minerals as a key component of our supply chain vulnerabilities. However, some of the restrictions in place and the permitting processes have made it almost impossible to access our domestic supply of critical minerals. As a nation, we have grown far too dependent on foreign nationals to supply our critical minerals that we need for the development of emerging clean technologies and energy technologies and for our national defense. I don't want to see the United States forced into a position where we grow even more reliant on countries that in some cases are not too friendly to us. Mining has a long and storied history in Idaho. However, it's important to note that the mining practices we see today are unrecognizable from mining practices in the 1800s, as I think both Dan and Russ mentioned. Today, we have sophisticated mining technologies that enable us to mine resources in an environmentally responsible and efficient way. As the demand for clean energy technology increases, we need to take a hard look at what we are doing to allow the resources needed for these technologies to be sourced domestically. Without a domestic supply, we cannot ensure the future of emerging technologies. With the support and input from local communities and stakeholders, it is my hope that we can improve access to mining on federal lands, because that's where most of these critical minerals are located, and that the future of the cobalt deposits remain open to exploration and production across Idaho. And again, thank you for holding this hearing, Dan. I appreciate it very much, and thanks to the Western Caucus.
Well, thanks a lot, Mike, and appreciate your insight and your comments and your interesting history lesson too. It's always fun to learn facts about our neighboring states. So now I've got the pleasure of introducing our first guest, Mr. Matt Lingerich, who is the Executive General Manager of Jervois Mining. That's the company managing the Idaho Cobalt Operations Project. Matt previously served as General Manager of Digital Transformation at the Rio Tinto mine based out of Salt Lake City, where he was a key leader of Rio Tinto's efforts to advance its capacity in artificial intelligence, data analytics, and mine productivity across its global operating sites. So I'd like to welcome you, Matt. Thank you very much for being with us, and open up the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Newhouse, Representative Fulcher, Representative Simpson, and guests. It's my pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Thank you for this invitation to present on Jervois Global and our Idaho Cobalt Operations Project. Today, I'm speaking to you from Idaho Cobalt Operations, about 8,000 feet in the Salmon Chalice National Forest. The sunrise behind me was just a few minutes ago, overlooking what will be our concentrator building in just a few short months. At Jervois, we are committed to building a sustainable supply chain for battery minerals. As noted by electric vehicle makers and national media, a limiting factor in the energy transition is the ability to mine, refine, and secure access to key metals and minerals used in battery manufacture. Jervois is committed to developing ore bodies and assets that provide these metals and minerals in a way that maximizes their economic and social benefits while limiting the environmental impact through best practice approaches. The U.S. currently relies heavily on foreign sources of cobalt for a multitude of industrial applications, including in defense and energy storage. Approximately 75% of cobalt originates in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. China controls much of that production, as well as approximately 80% of global cobalt refining capacity. This places the U.S. in an extremely vulnerable position, particularly considering that demand is rapidly escalating globally and within the U.S. With recent announcements from a number of automotive companies such as GM, Ford, and Toyota to invest massively in EV production in the U.S., alongside plans to construct multiple EV battery plants in the country. Securing a stable supply of cobalt is more crucial to the U.S. security and future prosperity than ever. Jervois Idaho Cobalt Operations is a low-impact underground mine currently under construction in the Salmon Chalice National Forest. When operational in the second half of 2022, it will be the first primary cobalt production in the United States since the early 1980s. Through the design, operation, and ultimately closure of that mining operation, Jervois is committed to creating an example of what modern mining operations are capable of. Once in production, producing approximately 2,000 tons per annum of cobalt in concentrate, ICO will meet approximately 15% of current US cobalt demand based on 2019 consumption, and may be able to meet as much as 30% of US demand with a permitted expansion. Supporting this mission is the economic and regulatory framework in which we operate. The development of mining operations and refineries is dependent on limiting the uncertainty in regulatory, environments, and economic impacts, as the payback on investment is typically measured in years, if not decades. There has been significant collaborative effort to bring this project to this point of operation. In particular, with the help of Director Keeley on this call, Jervois has secured a tax reimbursement incentive in Idaho connected to our level of employment. The collaboration between Idaho and Idaho Cobalt Operations has extended well beyond this, with active support for securing the numerous permits required for operations and a positive working relationship with the U.S. Forest Service in developing and monitoring our best practice approach to environmental management. Jervois supports the regulatory process review in the recently passed infrastructure bill, as decreasing complexity and increasing certainty in timeframes during the regulatory process will improve the timeliness for executing critical minerals projects. With the U.S. stockpile of inventory of critical minerals at historic lows, a review of regulatory process can be supported with dedicated financial instruments that support well-designed projects from exploration through operations and closure. With automotive manufacturers announcing commitments nearing $150 billion in the EV transition and current orders for the F-150 Lightning exceeding 10 times their 2022 production capacity, the growth in demand for cobalt is extraordinary before we consider the critical needs for defense, aerospace, energy transition, and electronics industries. At Jervois, we are excited to be a core part of the market response to provide the domestic supply of critical metals and minerals that will underpin the energy transition in the US. The collaboration between our company, regulators, and numerous stakeholders is allowing us to build a project that will benefit the local communities, the state of Idaho, and the United States of America. Most important, we are conscious of our responsibility to the industry in demonstrating how modern mining practices can deliver these critical resources while protecting the pristine surrounding environment in which we operate. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Matt, and thanks for helping us understand this exciting project happening in Idaho, along with a beautiful Idaho sunrise. Thank you very much for that. So Russ, Congressman Fulcher, could you please introduce our next witness, Commissioner Brandt?
Happy to do it. And Mr. Brandt and I had the privilege of serving together in the Idaho State Senate. And so he has all kinds of inside information on me, so I have to be nice to him. And I've got some inside information on him, so he has to be nice to me. But Mr. Brandt is a longtime public servant, native Idahoan, and prior to his service as Idaho County Commissioner, where he serves right now, he served as the mayor of Kuski, Idaho, and of course, as a member of the Idaho State Senate. In March of 2020, Mr. Brandt was appointed to the Western Interstate Region Board and has served as the county commissioner in Idaho County since 2007. So Skip, we're glad that you're here, glad that you're doing what you're doing, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you, Congressman, and glad to see your hair's growing back. Appreciate those words. And Chairman Newhouse, I really appreciate what the caucus does in bringing rural issues to light. And yeah, it's very much appreciated. Yeah, I am Skip Brandt, County Commissioner from Idaho County, and I really appreciate attending this hearing via Zoom from Free America, and I don't have to be in Washington, D.C. It's a real different change for testifying. Idaho County is a little county in Idaho that contains 5.5 million acres. 4.5 million acres are federally managed or non-managed. Of those 4.5 million acres, 2.2 are locked up in wilderness that I classify as land of no use. And I note that because it is important as we move into the future to manage land, to protect it. If habitat is burned up because of a wildfire, that's no different than being destroyed because of a logging operation. However, a logging operation can have a softer hand on it. The cobalt mine that we're discussing today is not located, of course, in Idaho County. It's in Lemhi County, which literally it's a bordering county to Idaho County. And it's literally 105 miles from where I sit as the crow flies. However, because of the geography of the great state of Idaho, it'd take me 7 to 8 hours to get to the mine, even though it is just 100 miles away. So with that, I just like to highlight a couple scenarios from my location right now, my house in the beautiful city, huge city of Kuski, Idaho. If I look out my window to the right, I overlook the confluence of the South Fork merging with the Middle Fork, the Clearwater River. If I look out my backyard and the hillside of my property where I have timberland, it is beautiful. This is where I grew up. This is where I was born and raised. This is where I work, I live, and I play. I'm not imagining some other place that I just want to have preserved that I might visit sometime. This is my backyard. And this whole hearing is very timely, because I just note what I got for Christmas. My Christmas present this year is a couple of batteries. And I hate to show, I'm glad my friends aren't watching this, but an electric chainsaw. I've hopefully pulled on my last starting rope. And I just note that I went down this avenue not to save the planet, but it's because of technology. This chainsaw with that single battery will outlast me out clearing brush and doing fire mitigation work. Yeah, I'm not a sawyer. I'm not dropping down big trees. That'd be a whole different thing. But for around the house activities, but along with this chainsaw, I got a weed blower. I got a snow blower, thank God this year, because I've needed it, and a weed eater that all take the same battery. And it's just amazing how long those batteries last. And so, you know, when we talk about natural resources, it's important that we manage our lands, we protect our lands, but we also have to look to the future. And we have to recognize that as we move forward with our society, we need to use the natural resources that we were blessed with. And thank you for your time.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Commissioner. It looks to me like you're going to be busy the summer and spring cleaning up around your place. So good for you.
Never ending.
So Commissioner, well, thank you very much for your remarks. Congressman Simpson, could I ask you to please introduce our next witness, Director Stringham?
Will do. Thanks, Dan. I was going to say, he shows that chainsaw, and I'm tempted to buy my wife a snowblower for Christmas, but I don't know how she'd be able to use it. So anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce Tammy Stringham. Tammy is the executive director for the Lemhi County Economic Development Association and has worked closely with businesses and organizations in the community since 2010. She's married with 2 grown children and her husband, and own a local fly shop in Salmon. And let me just say, in introducing her, it's interesting to listen to these people, because when we talk about mining, we're always talking about the environment and how do we protect the environment and so forth. And when you say mining, to some people, their mind goes back to the pictures of the 1800s where you took a fire hose and blew away the side of a mountain and washed down the gold and that kind of stuff. That's not mining anymore. I can tell you that the people that you are listening to today, from Idaho to the mine director to other people, nobody cares about the environment in Idaho more than they do. It's where they live, it's where they play, it's where they make a living, and it's where they want to stay, and that's why they're in Idaho. So when you talk about the environment, these are the people you need to listen to. So thank you, Tammy, for being here.
You're muted, Tim.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Newhouse, Congressman Fulcher, and Congressman Simpson for the opportunity to participate in this important celebration. Lemhi County is a really isolated county with 93% public land. With the decline in extractive opportunities, it's been really challenging to create and maintain prosperity in this area. As you know, Lemhi County has a long and rich mining history, and that's been a major economic force in the progress and growth of this valley. At this time, Lemhi County has a number of mining projects that are either in the reclamation process or in the exploration process, and that's for a variety of materials ranging from gold, cobalt, and rare earth metals. We're eager to see Jervois take the Idaho Cobalt Project operational. As an economic developer, I'm very excited to see the positive impacts on our businesses and community and to see the new job growth. And we're already seeing these impacts. We are working with Matt and his staff to develop plans for the social and economic impacts to the community for both short-term and long-term, so that at the end of the life cycle of this project, there's a continuing legacy of prosperity. And that's all I have. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Well, great. Thank you very much, Tammy. Appreciate you being here with us. And last, but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tom Keeley. Tom is the director of the Idaho Department of Commerce. Director Keeley is in charge with leading the economic development efforts in Idaho. He's received his MBA in strategic planning and marketing from the Harvard Business School and has a BA in accounting and finance from, this is a little hard to say, from the University of Washington. As a WSU grad, I'll try not to hold that against you. But he and his wife own the Chicago Connection restaurant groups, and Mr. Keeley's held numerous senior business roles in many Fortune 500 companies. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today, Tom. I'll turn it over to you.
Chairman Newhouse, thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me. Just a little sound check here. I think I'm off mute. And glad to be part of this meeting and be on with a panel of good friends, Representative Simpson, Representative Fulcher. Good to see you again. And good to see Matt on board here, and also Tammy. And I want to thank you for this celebration. It is really important today to celebrate the Jervois project and for the city of Salmon and Lemhi County. So important. Just some history. We all know that Idaho has a long history in mining. We embrace mining as one of those foundational businesses or activities for the state, with over 150 years of mining gold, phosphate, Southeast Idaho, North has been talked about already. I just want to say this project has been almost a model or a spectacular economic development project for Idaho in the Lemhi County Salmon area. I met Bryce Crocker, CEO of Jervois, a few months after I started working for Governor Little as Director of Commerce. We met and I learned about the vision of Jervois for the cobalt facility, cobalt mine in the Salmon area. He discussed the vision, talked about the stewardship for the land, the potential for having domestic supply for cobalt, something rare and unique. He also talked about how helpful our congressional delegation was or has been for this development. He was enthusiastic about the project, enthusiastic about Idaho, and was anxious to make this a very attractive and select Idaho to expand. From the beginning, they could have, Jervois could have chosen other locations outside of the US. And so we work closely with Tammy's Economic Development Group, Salmon County, the Office of the Governor, our delegation, to help really convince and encourage Jervois to select this site and to go forward. So a lot of collaboration, a lot of cooperation. And at the state, federal, local level, it took a lot of different efforts to encourage Jervois. Yes, there were some incentives at the state level, but there was also a lot of community support, a lot of national support for this project. Even during COVID, this was a challenge because Jervois' headquarters are in Australia. So we did a lot of late night calls with Bryce Crocker based in Australia and our folks up here in Idaho in that time zone difference. Matt's gone through the project, and it was great to meet Matt and be in person to understand his new, call it, position and goals for the project. This is going to have tremendous impact for a rural area of Idaho, a small location with a number of new jobs, high-paying jobs, the improvement to the infrastructure, along with the national benefits of having domestic cobalt processing here. We had the opportunity, Tammy and I and others, to go to the site last May 2021. It's a beautiful area. It's going to be well protected, way out of town, but I'll tell you, if you get a chance to visit this site, I know that Matt has the backdrop of the sunrise there. It is a gorgeous location on the top of that mountain. We also worked closely with helping with manufacturing camps to provide housing. You know, there is a housing shortage that's been going on. We work closely with U.S. Forest Service to help get the permitting or the access to open the mine or start the process going. Tammy's worked hard locally in the community, and Jervois has been very supportive of local activities as well as statewide and national activities. They've raised their capital. They look like they're well financed. That was one of the critical elements to make the decision. We, of course, pushed really hard and eventually got the approval for them to select Idaho to make this project happen. So we're pleased at this point with this new Idaho business, this location, this economic impact that's going to be very positive. So our state, our governor, Department of Commerce, we really celebrate this expansion, and we're going to continue working closely with Jervois and the community to make certain it's a great partnership across the board, and we have a long horizon to work together for the success of this project and for the community.
Great, Director Keeley, thank you very much for your comments, and I'd like to thank everybody for your presentations this morning. It really helps us understand truly the exciting things that are happening in Idaho. I'd like to open up for a round of questions. So first start with Congressman Fulcher. Russ, anything you'd like to ask of our guests? The floor is yours.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this question is for Matt. But Matt, I've had the privilege of working and traveling in almost 50 different countries, and I can say the environment that you're about to operate in is as beautiful as any of them. And let's project ourselves forward. When our grandkids go to that site in 50 plus years, what will they see? What's that environment going to look like?
Well, Representative Fulcher, thank you so much for the question. And thanks for your support on the project, along with Representative Simpson. I know you both have been deeply engaged with this project, and I really appreciate the support that we've gotten. Also, just wanted to quickly note, I'm pleased to be joined by two colleagues today from Jervois, Eric Miller and Jennifer Hinton. So really happy that they could join us on this call. To directly answer your question, assuming that there's no permitted expansion, Representative Fulcher, and we didn't expand the mine, I think it's reasonable to expect that in 30 years, people attending the site will be looking for elk, deer, mountain lions. They'll be hunting. They might be fishing in the bottom of Big Deer Creek. They will be very hard pressed to know that there was ever a mine in this location.
Thank you. And Mr. Keeley had talked about some of the economic impacts, which is inevitably going to have some significant ramifications, not just on Lemhi County, but in Mr. Brandt's County and Idaho County and the surrounding region. Talk to us just a little bit more. You touched on this, but talk to us just a little bit more on the employees, the type of employees, the talent. Do you have the pool you need to staff this adequately? What will average pay be, if you know that? Talk about that workforce and the impact thereof.
Yeah, wonderful question. Again, thank you. We expect when we're in full operation to have about 180 full-time positions active at the mine site. Now that will be a blend of Jervois employees and contractors. So contractors that will help us operate, because the permitted mine life is limited. It is at the moment, without expansion, only around 8 years. It makes sense for us to leverage the skill and the experience that exists in other contracting outfits that do this as part of their core business. So have about 180 people. They will come from all walks of life. We will have employees that are skilled engineers in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, processing engineers that understand complex flotation, metallurgy, geologists, geotechnical people. We'll have, and we'll also have a number of welders, electricians, pipe fitters. We will have miners, underground miners that have varying degrees of experience, environmental monitoring positions. So it will be a very diverse and heterogeneous group of people that will have everything from what one might describe as blue collar or manual labor in individual contributors, all the way through to highly technical roles that require advanced secondary degrees. To answer your direct question, we absolutely have concerns about our ability to continue to secure the skills and the talent that's required to operate a mine such as this. That can be everything from experienced underground miners who understand how to use roof bolters, who understand how to use twin drill jumbos, to experienced processing, flotation, mining engineers, and geologists. So we are eager to collaborate with mining schools. We're eager to collaborate with industry to understand how we make sure that there is a continued pool of talent for us to draw from.
Great, thank you. And I've only got about 30 seconds, and so this will need to be quick, but
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit more about the military applications, some of the Homeland Security impacts. Where will some of the product from this mine be used specifically in the military?
Wow, you might have caught me a bit off guard there. We have a really, really fantastic commercial team that could answer this question particularly well. My understanding is that in military applications, it's used in radar, in missile guidance systems. Those are probably the two things that I'm aware of, Representative Fulcher. So,
Matt, thank you. And for those testifying, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Great, thank you, Russ, and thank you, Matt, for your responses. Mike, have you got any questions you'd like to ask our esteemed guests?
Sure, I appreciate it, Dan. It's kind of interesting to note, if you haven't been to rural Idaho or rural America, when you talk about 180 jobs, 180 jobs in Seattle or Boise or somewhere else has an impact. It's important, but 180 jobs in Salmon, Idaho is critical. That is a big, big deal. And so it's going to be important to this region. But what I wanted to mention is, if there's a positive thing that's come out of this coronavirus, and it's hard to find a positive thing, but if there is, it is focused our attention on the fact that supply chain issues are huge, not just with the critical minerals and rare earths that we have that we're dependent on foreign countries that oftentimes don't like us, but also even the supplies that make up our medicines and those kind of things we're dependent on foreign countries. And that's something that I think Congress is becoming more and more aware of and attuned to, and is something that we have to address in this issue. But the challenge of opening a mine, as I said during my opening statement, most of the rare earths and minerals, critical minerals that we depend on, we have in the United States, but they're mostly on public lands, and having access to those is very, very difficult. As an example, with this, you have multiple jurisdictions you're dealing with, whether it's the local community and county, whether it's the federal government, whether it's the state government. You have multiple jurisdictions, and permitting gets oftentimes very confusing and very difficult to do. And if you're going to open a mine, it's going to take a long time to do it. So Matt, what's the challenge that you face in trying to get financing for this project on the market, or any other mining project that you might do, trying to get financing for it when investors look at it and say, well, you know, the return on this investment might be 10 or 15 or 20 years down the road before we actually open a mine and start producing anything. What's the challenge you face in that regard?
Representative Simpson, again, thanks for your support and thanks for your question. I think the challenge that I'd like to speak to today is that it's really about uncertainty. The challenge in getting any financing with a mining project is mining is all about uncertainty. We don't have certainty about what's in the ground. Keep in mind that if what we know about the ore body, if the ore body was this office that I'm sitting in, what we know about the ore body comes from something that's about the width of a pencil lead. That's what we know about the entirety of what's in the room that I'm sitting in. So mining is all about uncertainty. And what creates challenges in financing is uncertainty. And what can be particularly challenging is that within our permitting process in the United States, there's very little certainty over timeframes. We don't know how long something's going to take. And if we simply had a permitting environment where there was timeframes that were allocated for responses and for permitting activities, that would provide a level of certainty that we don't currently enjoy today.
Well, I appreciate that. And Dan, that's something that we Westerners and the Western Caucus ought to be working on, is trying to streamline this process, not to make it so that they don't have the environmental reviews that we all know are necessary, but so that it's streamlined so that we know and can depend on certain, as you said, timelines and stuff of when an agency has to respond and which agency it is. And even dealing with just the federal government, there's multiple different jurisdictions within the federal government, whether it's the Forest Service or the EPA or whatever, and they all have their own agenda. And somehow we need to streamline this whole process. Again, not to make it easier to destroy the environment, but to make us so that we can have some dependability on where we're doing this. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I appreciate your input on this and look forward to working with you as you move forward on this project and other mining projects that are in Idaho. We could go through multiple ones that are in the process of trying to get permitted and that kind of stuff. So thank you all for being here today.
Great, thank you, Mike. Yeah, important stuff. So I'll take my opportunity to ask a question. And I may direct mine to Director Keeley as well as Tammy and Skip as well. Being the folks in Idaho at state and local level, there's a lot of important benefits that I'm sure you're anticipating. You know, we as a country are going to be receiving a lot of benefits, and we talked a little bit about that, and the environmental concerns are being addressed. But talk to us a little bit about what you're anticipating, what you're preparing for, what you're looking forward to as far as the economic impacts to the local communities and to the state. So, Director, could we start with you?
Chairman Newhouse, thank you, and I'll definitely defer to Tammy, and she can talk about the major impact on the community. But I mean, statewide, we're all about helping with economic development, higher paying jobs, more jobs, definitely marketing the state, and also protecting recreation and tourism aspects as part of commerce. So this project has a lot of different elements that we were looking at and trying to assess and trying to also recruit this company or attract this company. And the impact is when Senator Simpson talked about it and Matt expounded upon it, the number of jobs, and these are jobs that are well above the average county wage in Lemhi County. So it's major dollars of employment, but then the ripple effect, the multiplier effect that goes along with that for that community. And then the state, of course, will benefit. And what we learn from this and what we can best practices is bringing in different state agencies, whether it be EPA, our Mineral Resources Group, and reaching out to federal agencies or our congressional, how to make it quicker, how to make it more clearer, for, like Matt's describing, how do you create some more certainty, create a timeline. And again, at Commerce, we try to act at the speed of business. So again, we try to push hard to make certain we get to answers. They might not be the right answers, but we can get to answers or plow through some of the questions that might exist and help with our businesses that are looking to expand or looking to come here from somewhere else. And again, we're the least regulated state. I'm sure we can all be better and improve upon that at federal level as well as state, but we try to do really well to help our rural and small communities with this kind of impact, as Senator Simpson talks about, and everybody knows when you're bringing 180 new jobs, high-paying jobs to this community of Salmon and that county and nearby, it's an amazing, uplifting economic impact. And we've got a good partner in Jervois, I believe, that is going to respect the environment and also respect the community's desires on how to grow over time.
Great, Tom. Thank you. A good segue. Director Stringham, any comments you have?
Sure. As you know, the person on the ground here in Salmon, we're super excited for all of the jobs. You know, as Congressman Simpson indicated earlier, in any community, 180 jobs is huge. In our community, 5 jobs that are paying above average wages are huge. So we're super excited about that. We're super excited about the ripple effects. And, you know, that's kind of where I come in, helping stand up businesses that can support Jervois and hire more people. Matt and I have had a number of conversations. He's given us some examples of at least one business that stood up here in town to support some efforts that he needed for transportation. So we're super excited to see those kinds of opportunities. We're also excited to work with Matt, and I see Jen Hinton on the phone or on the call as well. We're working on a community benefits agreement. So we have been working with Jervois, and we are discussing how we can have, how the mine can have a lasting legacy on this community that's well beyond the life of the mine itself. And whether that's through contributions to a community fund and things of that nature, we're working together already on those aspects. So housing is another challenge. So, you know, with any project, you know, there's a lot of positive impacts, but there are some real challenges. And as challenges are, housing is a challenge across the United States, it gets exacerbated in little communities like this because we don't have the resources and community input to build a lot of housing. So we're working on those issues as well. And I can tell you, in talking with Matt's staff, we've been really pleased to hear conversations about finding rental properties and the mine walking away from people who are getting greedy and just trying to make a money grab for our community, which just drives prices even higher so that the local folks can't afford anything. So we are just, I can't tell you how happy we are to have the support and input from Jervois and just working really closely with them. This is going to have a huge impact on our community. And I believe it's going to have a lasting impact on our community because we're much smarter now about this whole mine life cycle and all of the ups and downs and the roller coaster that a lot of these communities have had through the mining ups and downs. So we're trying to smooth that out and have a lasting legacy.
That's awesome, Director. Thank you very much for that. Commissioner Brandt, any thoughts you might have as a neighboring county and the impacts that you're looking forward to?
Well, it's already been brought up, you know, housing is probably the largest issue that we're dealing with. I mean, even for school teachers, the communities, we had a teacher that wanted to show up here, it'd be really a struggle to find housing. We are dealing with, besides the economic growth, we're dealing with a refugee program of all the people that are flooding in here from California, Oregon, and yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman, but even Washington to escape the elements that they're dealing with in those states. And so right here in my hometown, there is absolutely no rentals and no property. Again, we're so boxed in between tribal and federal lands. There's nothing. If you want to buy a place, there's just nothing on the market. And then the transportation aspect comes in. Right now for truck drivers, it's hard to find truck drivers. So there's gonna be some hurdles to clear as things move forward, but that's just what we have to do.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So we're coming to the end of our time, and I just want to tell you how sincerely grateful I am to all of you for being part of this forum today, and truly helping to focus on and spotlight something that not only Idaho can take a lot of pride in, but the whole Pacific Northwest, as well as the entire country. And so thank you for giving us the opportunity to spotlight a really positive project happening in the state of Idaho. I'd like to give Russ or Mike, if you have any final comments, thoughts that you'd like to provide, give you the opportunity to share those right now. Mike, how about we start with you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have one more very quick question, and I haven't heard much from Mr. Miller, and I just wanted to give him an opportunity to speak. And I probably should know the answer to this, but I really don't. There is undoubtedly other minerals that you will come across in the process of mining and harvesting for cobalt. In your permitting process, you come across copper, gold, or other types of minerals. Are you permitted to harvest that as well? Or is that something that that bridge needs to be crossed once you get there? How does that work?
Why don't you talk about the product mix?
Sure, thanks. Representative Fulcher, we will produce around 30 million pounds of cobalt, 43 million pounds of copper, and 50,000 ounces of gold over the permitted life of this project. And all of that is permissible under our existing permits.
Okay, and so if you come across molybdenum or something else, is that something you would have to get permission to harvest if that's a part of the process, or is that separate?
I believe there are some updates that we would have to make to our plan of operations, yes.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, no, great question, Russ. Thank you for asking that.
Thanks, Eric.
So, closing thoughts, Mr. Simpson, anything you'd like to add before we end?
Well, just thank you for putting this on, and thank you all for participating in this. This is something that we've got to work together on to try to streamline this process to make it more reasonable and more definite of when timelines are and how we can get at these critical minerals, because this is going to be important for our country and actually for the world. And as I said, on our public lands, we've got most of the critical minerals and rare earths that we need. It's a matter of getting at them and getting at them safely and getting at them environmentally soundly, and we can do that. I think it's incumbent upon Congress to try to streamline some of this process of how we get things done here. So I know that's asking a lot. Hell, we can't even streamline how we run the House. So trying to get this done is going to be difficult, but it's something we got to continue to work on. So I thank you, Dan, for holding this, and thank all of you for participating today.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Mr. Fulcher, any thoughts before we close?
No, thank you for hosting, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate your work with the Western Caucus, and we need you. We need this caucus. We need the interaction and support for our private industry, and for you all involved with private industry and local government there. Thank you for your patience. We know it takes a long time, a lot of energy, blood, sweat, and tears to make these types of things happen, and investment. And I don't know why we have to make it so difficult to progress sometimes, but that's the way that is. And until we get that improved, we just need persistent people. So Tom, thanks for being on board. Good to see you again. Skip, as always, good to see you. Tammy, nice to meet you virtually. We look forward to meeting you in person. Mr. Chairman, I turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. Well, let me add my voice of thanks to everybody as well. And I think if we learned anything today, it's that we need more projects like this one. You know, in Washington, D.C., a lot of times we get, as Mike was alluding to, we get bogged down literally by arguments about policies and regulations. Particularly this past year under the new Biden administration, the outlook has been particularly grave with increasingly burdensome red tape on resource-based industries. So I truly believe that it's very important for us to recognize that there are successful efforts that can bolster our economy, our national security, our energy independence, all while supporting and preserving our environment. These things are happening throughout the country, and we really need to focus on that and highlight that. A great examples, just like what we're seeing in Idaho. So thank you all for helping us to do that. I've got great members of the Western Caucus, two of the best right here with us today. We're always working to amplify the positive efforts that we're seeing around the country. And I'm truly grateful for all the work that you all are doing to help us do just that. So thank you all very much. Again, appreciate you helping us elevate and focus on something truly wonderful happening in this country, in the great state of Idaho. So thank you very much.